Good morning. Welcome to worship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. We are 4 young adult members of this congregation, and like all good Unitarian Universalists, we hope to bring you more questions than answers today. Our first question that we put to you is, what does it mean to be sitting on the edge of 30 with true youth behind you and an uncertain future before you? We were born at an historical turning point. Our generation is unique, having lived in equal parts before and during the age of information. We grew up both with and without the internet, and in both a vast and rapidly shrinking world. Because of this, our foundation in the world is often shaky and disconnected. We're part of a bridging generation that offers us an interesting perspective. For us, this church is a bridge. It's a link between our past and our future, and between our hopes and our fears. It's a place of solid passage in troubling times. It's that bridge we've come to cross with you today.
We light this chalice to celebrate our community, both inside and outside these walls. This chalice represents our togetherness and spiritual bond.
Welcome to today's service. We are honored to have guests with us. Our members would like to greet you following the service. So that we might do so, if you're visiting, please raise your hand and keep it up. Members, take note of the guests seated near you. After the service, invite them to join you for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both a large print order of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card. You'll find them along with the offering envelopes on the clipboards at the end of the row. Please begin passing them down your row. Members with a life event to share can indicate that on the reverse side of the card. Put your completed yellow cards in the offering basket when they're passed later in the service. Some returning visitors may be interested in hearing about how to become a member. If so, talk with our membership coordinator, Kelly Green. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, welcome.
Our first reading comes from Will Allen Dromgoole, a prolific turn-of-the-century female writer. An old man going a lone highway came at the evening cold and gray to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear for him. But he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you're wasting strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you this bridge at evening tide? The builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend, in the path I have come, he said, there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been not to me, to the fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I am building that bridge for him. My name is Melanie, and I've been a member here for about 8 years. I live a relatively uncomplicated 3-part life. I am a mom and a partner, a school teacher, and a UU. Teachers and parents in here know that either of those jobs could encompass your entire life to the exclusion of all else, and that is why my identity as a UU is so important to me. For me, this church is a bridge to a world that's larger than dinner, swim practice, and work politics. It's a path to the interdependent web of life. Each Sunday, we bridge this gap between our own lives and the lives of people that are thriving or struggling in the world. We metaphorically link arms with our fellow humans by acknowledging that each of us has worth and dignity. If you had asked me as recently as 2 or 3 years ago, I would not have included any religious identity. If pressed, I would have told you rather timidly, I'm an atheist, but I love that you have your own beliefs. This church has helped me to cross this bridge as well, from a sort of ambivalent care for others to a core set of beliefs. I once heard a lay speaker here reflecting on what God meant to her. She said something akin to, God to me is the connection between people. It's our humanity and our spirit. That was a game changer for me. I realized that, for me personally, saying I was an atheist was me admitting that there's no hope. In a world with so much anger and fear, it's easy to give up. It's much harder to say, I believe in humans, I believe in the spirit of people and the power of hope. This church is my connection to the world of people who truly believe that there is hope. When I stand and sing, or teach RE, or close my eyes in silent meditation, I am praying. I am declaring that there's a link between people where hope lives. We come here each week to help build a bridge between the debilitating fear so many of us feel and a brighter future. My family is a constant reminder of what lies on the other side of the bridge, and they're also the ones that help hold my hand as I attempt to cross it. My daughter Elise was born a bit prematurely in 2011, and had a rough introduction to life. What I felt at that time was my first glimpse of all-consuming fear. But it was Elise who truly taught me the lesson of faith. Before she was 1 year old, she proved to countless doctors, nurses, surgeon, Michael and I, her parents, that she was greater than the sum of all of her symptoms. Anyone who knows Elise knows that there is an inner strength and a light that she carries with her everywhere. Michael and I did not give her this light. She was born with it. All we can do is nurture it. When I look at my children, I get a glimpse of the absolute divinity that lives in all of us. As a congregation, we believe in the existence of a human power to create a better world, and we work collectively to build a bridge to get there. So a few years ago, I may have been the one to ask, why build you this bridge at evening tide? But now I know better. I can answer confidently by saying, there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way.
From the writings of Marion Franklin Ham. Free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. Good morning. My name's Erin. I call myself Lutheran, the same way I call myself North Carolinian. It means I'm used to a certain climate. And though I might venture elsewhere for a taste of a different culture, I'm always going to be more comfortable in my natural environment, whether that refers to humidity and dogwood trees or pews and a pipe organ. I've always been more evangelical about my favorite Broadway shows than about my private faith. But right after college, I tried to live out a childhood fantasy by moving to Paris, far from my family and the little Lutheran church where I grew up. And once I was surrounded by unfamiliar traditions and people whose pop culture references went right over my head, I found myself spending most of my free time online. I was looking for a place to belong, and I found it in an internet community that eventually became known as social justice warriors. Fighting for social justice is a good thing. Recognizing your own privilege is a shocking and necessary experience, and it's one that never stops when you're born a white Christian kid in the United States. However, like everything, it's easy to go too far. Within 2 years, my sense of self-righteousness and my mission to blacklist and boycott anything or anyone that had ever trespassed had become an evangelical passion. I got called annoying constantly. I got used to the sight of that light going out of people's eyes when they tried to talk to me about a movie they'd seen, and I interrupted them to inform them that they shouldn't be watching that film because the lead actor said something problematic 15 years ago. Even liberal friends sent me messages urging me to lighten up. But that long list I was keeping of public figures who had made mistakes gave me a feeling of power. I was sure that by calling them out in the name of the communities they had hurt, I was doing those communities a service. After health issues and visa issues forced me to give up Paris for the US, I still wasn't ready to embrace that North Carolina humidity, so I tried living in Manhattan. I learned a lot, and I figured out how to get cheap tickets to Broadway shows, and that is the best thing I can say about those 2 years of my life. I was still a proud social justice warrior online, but then Michael Brown was murdered, followed by Eric Garner. And slowly I realized that my hobby of scolding people for past mistakes had to mean something. By the time I tossed all my stuff into a U-Haul and moved back to North Carolina, I decided it was time to make my mother's dreams come true and join a church. But I'd never looked for spiritual guidance or felt insecure in my private faith. If anything, I needed help bringing everything I'd learned online into the offline world. When I told my cool aunt that I wished there was a church that preached social justice instead of religion, She asked if I'd ever heard of a UU, and I hadn't. I'd been in Charlotte a week when I spotted this place out my car window on the way to PetSmart, and here I am 2.5 years later. So what have I learned from the people who've stood at this pulpit? Why am I still here? The most important lesson this place has given me, the one thing that's finally helped me begin to bridge the traditions that I loved in childhood with that passion for social justice, was summed up in Jay's sermon last week: gratitude. Without gratitude, I lose the anchor keeping me in place in this social justice war, and I drift too far. And with the amazing places I've lived, my supportive family up in Burlington, and the herd of deer I saw out the window of my new condo last night, I have a lot to be grateful for these days. Even when the political climate feels scarier than it ever has in my lifetime, I'm now working to take a stand in the name of love instead of self-righteousness. I'm learning that it's possible to dedicate myself to a community without blacklisting anyone who doesn't share my views. And depending on the views in question, that's a tricky one. But we come here on Sundays from different traditions and from different perspectives, from different private faiths, but with a common desire to dedicate ourselves to something that means something. I'm grateful for my Lutheran roots, but I'm even more grateful for the fact that the social justice church that I dreamed up actually exists, and that it can bridge these two pieces of my identity. The pipe organ and that North Carolina humidity are just an added bonus. Thank you.
This is a quote from Celine Dion. I'm not gonna sing. The hardest thing to find in life is balance, especially the more success you have, the more you look to the other side of the gate. What do I need to stay grounded, in touch, in love, connected, emotionally balanced? Look within yourself. Good morning. My name's Rachel Pepper. I've been a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte my entire life. Lloyd Dillon officiated my parents' marriage. I had my naming ceremony in this very sanctuary in 1989. I went through the CYRE program and participated in OW and Coming of Age. I flipped thousands of pancakes for the pancake brunches, slept on the floors of this church for countless lock-ins, more times than any human should ever have to endure. And now I'm one of the high school youth advisors here, which means I still have to sleep on the church floor for lock-ins. I've been thinking for a week about how to tell the congregation what being a UU means to me, how being a Unitarian Universalist connects me to the community here at UUCC, but also bridges me into the community outside of the church. When I first returned back to the UUCC as an advisor, I felt extremely disconnected. I thought my sole purpose was to be with the youth, or so I thought. Because I was here so often, I got to know the parents. Then the parents started talking to me in the fellowship hall after service. I started babysitting for members of our congregation and open door attendees. I started babysitting for the Van Fleets when their youngest was just 3 months old. He is now 3 years old, and I still see them often and consider them to be amazing friends and a part of my life. The longer I tend, the more connected I feel. Pretty soon, Kathleen starts asking me to do things like sharing a reflection in the young adult service. These are all wonderful things I have shared so far, but it's easy to feel connected when I'm here. But what about the other 6 days when I'm not here at church? Admittedly, I cannot recite our 7 principles from memory. I always have to take a peek at good old Google. My interpretation of the principles and how I view them are as follows. The inherent worth and dignity of all, respect, love, and tolerance for others, acceptance of everyone and everyone's right to seek their own truth and meaning. So how has this helped me in my life outside of the UUCC? How has it acted as my bridge? It has taught me to accept other people's views and opinions on politics, civil rights, or their view on life in general. When someone doesn't believe the same thing I do, my immediate reaction is to get angry and to put them in their place. However, 28 years at this church has taught me I don't have to do that. It has taught me to tolerate others. I respect their opinions and accept where they are in their spiritual journey, even if it doesn't align with mine. I try to bring that mindset into RE on Sundays and share it with our high schoolers. My experience here has been a wonderful bridge to my work life as well. I'm more culturally aware. I communicate better with others from different religions and ethnic backgrounds because I was taught to believe in the inherent worth and dignity of others. Because of this church, what we teach, and the people here, I live in a world of one instead of the world of just Rachel. I hope the Unitarian Church will always be a part of my life. I am by no means perfect. I make judgments, and sometimes I hold prejudices. However, when I come here on Sundays, I'm grounded back to my spiritual beliefs and always walk away with a better perspective. That's one bridge I don't want to burn.
This reading is from the novel This Census Taker by China Mieville. A bridge wants not to be. If it could choose its shape, a bridge would choose no shape, an unspace to link one place town to another place town, over a river or a quarry, or a road or tangle of railway tracks, or to attach an island to another island, or to the continent from which it strains. The dream of a bridge is of a woman standing at one side of a gorge and stepping out as if her job is to die. But when her foot falls, it meets the ground right on the other side. A bridge is just better than no bridge at all. But its horizon is gaplessness, and the fact of itself should still shame it. My name is Emily Katz, and I am no Golden Gate Bridge. I started attending the UUCC in 1989 with my family, and over the decades, this congregation has borne witness to my journey so far. A rainbow of hair colors, endless phases, mild boundary testing, personal growth, and the changing seasons of my life. To convey this current life season, if you will indulge me, a sports metaphor. Bear with me. For the past 10 years, roller derby has been my hobby, escape, workout, social life, my passion, and an integral piece of my identity. While it has been a significant part of my world, it is most likely a bit foreign to you. Modern roller derby is a contact sport played by two teams of 5 players skating in the same direction around the track. Both teams designate a jammer who scores points by lapping members of the opposite team. The teams attempt to hinder the opposing jammer while assisting their own jammer, in effect playing both offense and defense simultaneously. Elevator speech over. So who is the MVP in this picture? I imagine most of you would pick one of these players up front where the action is. Either the fierce jammer determined to get these last 2 points, or the pair of blockers tirelessly holding that jammer back. But it's this player here, the one in the background, looking useless and perhaps a bit overwhelmed. She is the bridge. In derby, all blockers must be a part of the pack, and players are only allowed to engage opponents 20 feet in front and 20 feet behind the pack. Sometimes, in order to allow your teammates to be effective for longer, you become a bridge. You drop out of active gameplay and position yourself between the areas of action, using your body to stretch the pack boundaries and buy your teammates another 10 feet. While the bridge is no longer playing an active role, she facilitates the action. Her teammates would have to let the jammer go and give up their points if the bridge fails. So, the bridge holds, looking forward to the action ahead and backwards to the play behind. This is not a glamorous role. It does not make for a great picture. It will not win you fan favorite. And nobody will be chanting your name. But for all of its subtlety, it is at times the most important role. This bridge is not a planned path, nor is it a destination. It is not the goal. Rather, it is an outcome born of survival and necessity. It is not the Golden Gate Bridge. It is a 2x4 slung haphazardly across the drainage creek. It is sleepless nights, greasy hair, gaps in employment, dwindling social lives, forgetting self-care. It is willing self-sacrifice. The dream of a bridge is that of a woman standing at the side of a gorge and stepping out as if her job is to die. But when her foot falls, it meets the ground right at the other side. Though the water below may be filled with unknown perils, the village I have collected for this life I have curated give me courage. Being held in the safety and support of my friends, family, and this congregation enables me to continue to take these blind steps, Someday, maybe, I will feel as if I have arrived. But for now, we call your attention to the announcements in the back of the order of service. This Saturday is our Habitat for Humanity Workday, when 6 volunteers from the UUCC will be joining other volunteers from across the city to work on a new home on Ridge Avenue. Our Sunday afternoon, December 3rd, members of our adult choir will be giving a caroling outreach concert at nearby assisted living facilities. If you'd like to participate, please contact Director of Music John Herrick. More information is available for these and additional events in your order of service and on our Currents webpage, accessed through the UUCC website. We hold in our hearts our members who are facing long-term health challenges, and those who serve as caregivers. Everyone is invited to light a candle during the offering to mark a celebration, concern, or remembrance.
I invite you now to a time of meditation and aspiration. Let us plant our feet firmly and let the air in this space flow through us. Allow the human spirit in this space to feed your spirit. Donna Kate Rushin said, "The bridge I must be is the bridge to my own power. I must translate my own fears, mediate my own weaknesses. I must be the bridge to nowhere but my true self, and then I will be useful." Amen.
In an effort to keep our bridge strong, encourage spiritual growth, and provide a safe space, we now pass the offering. Please rise, embody your spirit, and join us in an affirmation of our faith. Out of wood and stone, out of dreams and sacrifice, the people build a home. Out of the work of their hands and hearts and minds, the people fashion a symbol and a reality.
May all who enter here trust one another so surely that they dare to share the deep fires that burst into anger, as much as the sweet spring waters that swell into laughter, the slow erosion of wounded tears, as much as the soaring song. May these walls know silence, as 100 hearts surge inward, each for its own small spark of hope, that might otherwise be snuffed out in the noise.
May these rafters hear the voice of the child, as surely as that of the orator, and the sound of the lute, the clack of the typewriter, the swish of the broom, and know that all are as holy as the shout of a million stars.
May the rain fall lightly on this house, the sun shine warmly, the winds blow softly, and blessed as the place of joy and peace. nice. In the words of Howard Zinn, I have tried hard to match my friends in their pessimism about the world. Is it just my friends? But I keep encountering people who, in spite of all evidence of terrible things happening everywhere, give me hope, especially young people, in whom the future rests. Wherever I go, I find such people. And beyond the handful of activists, there seem to be hundreds, thousands more, who are open to unorthodox ideas. But they tend not to know of one another's existence, and so, while they persist, they do so with the desperate patience of Sisyphus, endlessly pushing that boulder up the mountain. I try to tell each group that it is not alone, and that the very people who are disheartened by the absence of a national movement are themselves proof of the potential for such a movement. Please be seated for the postlude.